Alrighty. So the Vikings have signed a corner, Bashaud Breeland. So over the last 2 years, he had 17 pass deflections, only allowed 49.2% of his passes against him to be completed, and had an 83.6 quarterback rating against him. Now, his yards per target was at 7.1, and his yards per completion was at 14.4. So that kind of just means when he gets beat, it's, not short. And he did allow 9 touchdowns over the last 2 years, but did have 4 interceptions. So he's a little bit more of a risk taker versus some of the other guys that Minnesota has. Like a Mackenzie Alexander, where he's kind of the anti-Bashaud Breeland, where it's like you may catch the ball against him, but you're probably only going to gain anywhere from 5 to 7 yards. Where this one's like, well, you may not catch the ball, but when you do, it's a big play. Now, the deal was said to be worth up to $4 million, so I'm not sure exactly how much this will count against the cap, when it comes to incentives, it's usually based on what is likely and what is unlikely, so I'm not entirely sure how much this will count against the cap. However, the more interesting part is I saw a thing that said he is expected to compete for an outside corner job. So that's a little interesting, strictly because it kind of looked like they were more than happy to roll in with, hey, Patrick Peterson and Cameron Dantzler are 2 corners. Maybe not. Now, I do think both will play no matter which one wins that starting job, but I just found it interesting that they're basically saying compete with Dantzler because the other one's Patrick Peterson, so probably not doing that in terms of, just making him compete for a job. And I also think that means Gladney remains, well, just basically as safe as, he has been the last couple of weeks since they threw him into the nickel. And assuming Gladney's situation actually makes him unavailable for longer than anticipated, my kind of anticipation is probably like 6 games, just because that's the domestic violence kind of protocol. So I would think that would be it. So, but if it lasts longer than that, it certainly ensures the Vikings have more than enough depth on this team to survive this. And just looking at the total, amount of corners they have, obviously Peterson, Dantzler, Alexander, and now Breeland will round out your top 4 main corners that you'd like to rotate in quite often. Jeff Gladney, I think, might be able to come into that group a little bit if he can come back, but there's kind of a little asterisk next to his name currently. And they still have guys like Chris Boyd, Harrison Hand, Perry Nickerson, and Ty Smith on the roster that they just recently signed, and Dylan Mabin also there. So overall, I think this is a pretty long way from what they had at the end of last year, where we saw guys like Chris Jones and, Chris Boyd getting a pretty significant amount of play time. And I think it goes without saying, I think this position group has gone over a pretty decent overhaul here in this offseason, and it should be significantly better. Now, I'm very curious to see the corner rotation that they implement, because we have seen the Vikings sign guys like this in the past, where it's like everyone's like, oh, they're gonna do so many things. Like they can rotate in, they'll have all these fresh legs, they'll come in, be able to give guys breathers, and then some of them we just like, oh yeah, he's on the roster by like week 10. It's like, oh yeah, he made a play. I forgot we had you because you're never on the field. So I kind of hope that's not one of those cases. Tremaine Brock was a different corner that I feel like this kind of happened to. But I do think Bashaud Breeland has more to his resume, strictly because he started more games over the last couple of years. 27 games, like his last 27 games, he started 26 of them. So he is used to starting games. So I don't think they would sign this guy if he didn't think he had a realistic chance to play a pretty significant amount. And so here we are. I'd like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Like and subscribing, super helpful. And until next time, I bid y'all adieu.